Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang Dhammang Sanghang Namasami. So good evening, everyone, and just to first of all express my appreciation to the venerable elders of the Sivananda Ashram here, and for extending this invitation and giving me the opportunity to speak and share Dhamma, share the teachings with you. In sharing teachings, one of the, especially in our tradition, I think it's important to recognize that the, what basically all I am doing is trying to give a reflection or give tools for reflection and contemplation, and then the rest is up to you. So it's more because it whatever I say needs to be taken as a contemplation or as a pointing to some kind of practice or truth, and hopefully it's useful. But it is important to especially when because religious teachings can sometimes come across as categorical or declarative, and that is, and then you're put into a position of either rejecting it or accepting it. But say the way that the Buddha taught was much more giving the tools for contemplation and reflection, and then it's up to us to draw the teachings inward, and this is when when we reflect on the Buddha's, say, the teachings, the Dhamma, Dharma, some of the words that the Buddha describes his own teaching, or that we do is say openaiko, it's leading inwards, drawing into the heart. So one has to draw the teachings into the heart, contemplate them, steep the heart in the teachings. Also that these teachings are for each wise person to see for themselves, and hopefully, say, these teachings tonight will be helpful to you. But please take it as something to contemplate rather than some kind of declaration. Because especially given the topic that was assigned to me, Nibbāna, when I was in America, and a talk on Nibbāna, good grief. What am I going to do with that? Because it is the highest goal, and there's different translations for Nibbāna. Say extinction, cessation. How do you talk about that? or it's a very short talk. So so it, but the, but I think it's helpful to reflect on, because Nibbāna is the goal. It is the aim for, in terms of as a Buddhist, for all of the different areas of practice or living one's life as a Buddhist practitioner. The goal, the aim, is Nibbāna, and the during these last couple days at the Ajahn Ashram, then before the teachings, the monks, contingent of monks who are from Bangalore, have been doing chants and blessing chants, and one of the chants that they do is a chant in terms of a dedication of blessings, and so reflecting on all the various activities, and it says Nibbāna pacceo hotu. May these activities, may these teachings, may these intentions be a cause and condition for the realization of Nibbāna. Because, and it is important to live one's life with an appropriate goal. I realize, as in Vedanta, that might be a bit, Advaita Vedanta, so you shouldn't have a goal and shouldn't have, but I think it is important that we do clarify, where we're going, what are we doing, what are we doing it for, and so that Nibbāna is the, from a Buddhist perspective, the collecting point of where we want to direct our attention and energy. So it's helpful to reflect on the nature of Nibbāna, and of course, because it's such an important topic, then there's all sorts of interpretations and perspectives. But there's a couple perspectives that are very important. And I think probably first and foremost is to reflect on the most frequent way that the Buddha referred to Nibbāna. And the most frequent way, that there's two particular ways that come up the most in the discourses. Is one is it's the freedom from suffering. Nibbāna is the ending of all suffering, and suffering means any kind of dis-ease, discontent, dissatisfaction, stress. So that it's it's an experiential goal as opposed to a conceptual goal. Because as an experience, we all want to be free from suffering. We all want to be. Nobody gets up in the morning, looks in the mirror, washes their face, and says, "How can I suffer more today?" Just nobody thinks like that. But to make it conscious that because normally we go about our day in a pretty haphazard way, and so to bring to mind that sense of I truly want to live in a way that brings about an ending of suffering, both my own suffering and the suffering of others, because there is no barrier between ourselves and others. Those are but of course we know what we're feeling, and we can work with that. Learning how to do that, learning how to work with the the feeling of limitation and say of stress. The other main way that the Buddha talked about Nibbāna is also around an ending, and this is more the ending of greed, hatred, delusion, the ending of the root defilements of the heart, and being able to relinquish those habits and tendencies that are influenced by greed, by desire, by attachment, by clinging, by aversion, by ill will, by anger, and influenced by kind of delusion, confusion, doubt, uncertainty, the mind that is clouded with uncertainty. So to be paying attention, how can I relinquish that? How can I bring about that experience of that ending, that cessation? And another aspect, and this is more of a commentarial interpretation, but I think it's a very good one, is that, say, Nibbāna or Nirvana is a literally meaning unbinding. So like unbinding, disentangling the knots, like unbinding oneself from the things that do create suffering and stress. Unbinding, disentangling oneself from the various knots of complication that are so much a part of the human condition, and being able to experience peace and clarity, because we bind ourselves with the things that do create suffering, and of course those things that bind us are not tangible, but they're very strong because they're attitudes of mind, inclinations of the heart that are, say, misguided and lacking in true understanding and true knowledge. So it's an opportunity to this sense of unbinding and release, and that's where especially when we think of maybe compare it to as when we're being received, coming in here and talking with the two senior swamis. There was a sense of or a mention of tying in, say, the idea of Nibbāna with moksha, and which is more of a Hindu term. But moksha is, in my understanding, which is very limited, but is that experience of freedom, of liberation, and that liberation and freedom, release, is an unbinding, being able to be not bound by those qualities that tend to stain the heart and create stress and difficulty. So because I think, again, as we speak about the human condition, of course there's all of the different religions and traditions there is a fundamental wish to point to a path or a way that allows human beings to experience relief from how can human beings experience peace? How can they experience freedom? How can they experience a liberation? And so I can only speak from Buddhist perspective, and then even that is, I can only speak from my own limited experience of the Thai forest tradition, which we tend to, it tends to be a very practical, down-to-earth approach, and I find that quite refreshing. And that sort of brings me to, say, another say, interpretation or definition of Nibbāna is like a cooling or quenching, so that there is, because say in the Buddha's time, and he's an Indian, and I think, although it's very pleasant weather right now, what is say most oppressive in a yearly cycle, I would think, would be the heat, and so that some kind of cooling or quenching is really desirable. And so that Nibbāna, and because Nibbāna is a cooling, and because not so much in the scriptures, but in the stories in illustrating our discipline, there are idiomatic use of the word Nibbāna, like speaking of like a pot of rice comes off the stove, it's hot, it's boiling. You set it aside to cool down. You set it aside to Nibbāna. So it's a very, say, a prosaic use of the term, but it is important to recognize that the Nibbāna is not just some exalted philosophical ideal. There's a practicality there, and we all want to experience this cooling and quenching, and of course, what is it that stirs up that kind of emotional heat? I mean, it's greed, hatred, delusion, and the being able to release, relinquish, to let go. That is such an important aspect of the experience of cooling and quenching. Is as much as one can let go, one will experience a sense of relief and release. It's my teacher, Ajahn Chah, there's a short teaching he gave one time, was this: if you let go a little, you get a little peace. If you let go a lot, you get a lot of peace. If you let go completely, you'll get complete peace. So it's the a very simple equation in this spiritual path, in this spiritual way. It's all about letting go, relinquishing, and releasing. So paying attention to that, and in the Buddha's teachings, his very first teaching, which was kind of predicated right after his awakening, his enlightenment experience under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya. He reflected, and at first the reflection was, this is too subtle, this is too difficult for people to, how can I teach it? Why should I teach it? And then the heart of compassion arose, and he made the determination to teach. But then he thought, well, who should I teach? And he thought of there were 5 ascetics who were practicing with him and had deserted him because he had kind of relinquished his extreme ascetic practices and had started eating and more normally and not being so extreme in his asceticism. And they thought, he's a slacker, and they went off somewhere else. But he thought of them because they were very sincere and they're dedicated to their practice. I thought, well, and then he made the determination. He's considered, where were they? Because the Buddha is in Bodh Gaya, and he says, oh, okay, they're in the deer park in Sarnath, near Varanasi. And I think it's about 200 kilometers walk. It's a ways. So he made a determination to go there and teach, and along the way, he was recognized by a wandering ascetic, wandering pilgrim, who came up to him and said, your demeanor is very radiant, your presence is very inspiring. Who is your teacher? And the Buddha came up with this, very beautiful kind of declaration of his full awakening. I am the only person fully awakened in the world right now. I don't have a teacher. I am supreme. And the wanderer said, kind of, may it be so, and disappeared very quickly. So this is way too much. And the Buddha contemplated, reflected, and probably said, okay, that didn't work. So that when he did begin to teach these 5 ascetics, he thought, I've got to have something that's more approachable, something useful. And so that this teaching on the 4 Noble Truths, that there is suffering, there is dukkha, there is difficulty and limitation in this world, but also that there is a cause, there is an origin, and there is a cessation, there is an ending of all of that, and there is a path, there is a way of practice, there is a way of training that one can approach that. So that those teachings were what he taught those those five ascetics, and on his first giving of the teaching, then one of them had the kind of initial awakening experience, and entering the stream of Dhamma, so that his teaching was, but it's using the experience which is actually common to all of us. It's in the human condition. If somebody tells you they're not suffering, or they don't have any stress, and then you got to wonder what's up with them. But in these Four Noble Truths, in the structure of these Four Noble Truths, there is the truth that the Buddha points to, but then there's also it's like a duty or responsibility that one has to that truth. So that it's not just a declarative statement, okay, there is suffering, deal with it. There is suffering, and that suffering is to be known, it's to be understood, or it's to be deeply understood. And the cause of suffering is to be abandoned. Because, in our impulse, once we start reflecting or seeing on, wow, I'm acknowledging, okay, I'm experiencing some suffering, I'm experiencing some stress, I'm experiencing some discontent. The impulse is to try to let go of the suffering. And as long as it's not completely understood, then we can't really see clearly what those causes are. And to be able to see those causes, it's the causes, the conditions that we set in place through our own attachment, our own clinging, our own delusions, and our own distorted perceptions, that we set the whole thing rolling. But it's those causes and conditions that need to be relinquished and to be abandoned, to be let go of. And so that, and of course that takes clarity, it takes patience, and that in order to do that, one has to have some kind of faith or some kind of confidence that there actually is an ending. There is a cessation of suffering, and in order to approach that cessation, again, the duty or the responsibility that the Buddha points to is this kind of letting go, relinquishing, releasing the quality, and he points to four different qualities that one's in order to experience the cessation, the ending of dukkha. And in the scriptural language, chago, patinisago, murti, analayo. But it's all around. Chago is like giving up. But there's an interesting combination of both, giving up, but also giving and generosity. Because you don't want to give up something just out of aversion or fear. You want to be able to give something up with a generosity and a willingness to give up. So this sense of chago, to be able to give up those causes and habits that we tend to identify with as me and mine. This is what I am, and to be able to just to let them go and just give them up, and similarly these are all they're synonyms. So chako, patinissako is like a relinquishment. A willingness to relinquish. Because in reality, even though sometimes we see, you see that when you get upset and angry at somebody, and it's painful, it's uncomfortable, but you still don't want to give it up. There's a certain sweetness to nursing one's wrath, which is, we're not actually, we're really not very logical creatures. So one has to be dedicated to relinquishment and giving up, and paying attention to that. But when I do that, I experience a quenching, a cooling, and that is an experience. That's an experiential confirmation of the path, and so that chako, patinissako, mutti is like releasing, being able to release and to be able to let go. This past year, I came across a phrase when somebody was talking about, a writer was talking about the necessity of letting go, and it was in a much more mundane perspective or circumstance, but I thought it was a very apt description. Sort of, everything I've ever let go, I've had claw marks on it. Just that, I know I need to let go, but maybe not quite yet. Just desperately hanging on. And you have to realize, no, it's the release and relinquishing that where a sense of real peace and well-being and true happiness comes from. The last quality, analio, it almost literally means like non-desire, but it is also but it's also like a non-stickiness, because desire is very sticky, and to be able to having a heart that has some Teflon on it, that's not just desire or habits. It's not sticking. You can see things clearly, and it doesn't stick. It's that letting go and relinquishing, so that this quality of different forms of letting go or relinquishing, the way that the Buddha speaks of that, is the duty or the responsibility that we have to this experience of a cessation in the ending of suffering, and which is in the structure of the Four Noble Truths. The word that the Buddha uses is Nirodha, and which is a synonym for Nibbāna, and so that they're equated. They have a close interrelationship with each other. And another aspect of, say, like cessation of suffering, cessation of defilement, or to say cessation of greed, hatred, delusion, is that word Nirodha, besides, cessation is the most direct thing, but usually when we speak of something like just the way that we use language, when we speak of cessation, we tend to think of an existing thing that then needs to come to an end. And that's maybe not a helpful way, because then we expend huge amounts of time and energy going around stamping things out all the time and trying to get rid of things. Whereas another valid translation of that word Nirodha is non-arising, which is a really interesting perspective. So the non-arising of suffering. Is that, why do we keep paying attention? I mean, suffering and greed, hatred, it attracts our attention. But can we pay attention to the non-arising before it arises, before it comes into being? And that's a really interesting exercise. And then that's the experience of Nibbāna. And that is the feeling or the essence of Nibbāna, is that sense of the non-arising of suffering. And from the perspective of the Thai forest traditions, and then that is, it's just the direct experience of knowing, of awareness. Yes, we do all these practices. You have to do all these practices. But it's learning how to tune into those practices so that you are recognizing the quality of awareness, or that sort of a primal awareness, a primal knowing, a quality of knowing that is present, and which is always there. And it can be accessed at any time, but it's learning how to tune into it, so that using just using a non-arising of dukkha as a tool to remind, prodding the mind into seeing in a slightly different way, because language and the force of our habits of being a human being keep us repeating cycles that are not so useful to us, and to be able to tune in to this quality of knowing. And that's one of the in the Thai forest tradition, there are many different meditations that are given, but the main meditation that's most often given is just the recitation of the name of the Buddha, just Buddha, and in the Thai pronunciation, they Buddho, and you recite the Buddha's name, and part of it is like a mindfulness tool. But it's also reflection on the deeper meaning of what the word Buddha points to, because in the Thai translation, when they define Buddha, it's not pointing to a historical being; it's pointing to the quality of the Buddha. And there's three primary qualities, and one is the quality of knowing, being the knowing, of awakening, of wakening up, of awakening, and of radiance. In the Thai, it's pulu putun puberba. And this quality of, this is what we're doing when we meditate. This is what we're doing when we're working. This is what we're doing when we're moving from place to place. Recollecting and drawing the heart, or allowing the heart to arise from this quality of knowing, of awakening, of radiance, because these are inherent qualities, and qualities that the Buddha points to. And one time there's a person who was he was actually the person who, he was the head of an organization that invited Ajahn Chah to establish the first monastery in the West, in England. They had a Buddhist organization, English Sangha Trust, in England that had been established for some time. It had been established in the 1950s. And they wanted to have a traditional Buddhist presence, and it had many failed attempts to do it. And so but when the president of it met Ajahn Chah, met Ajahn Sumedho, they were impressed and wanted to set up. And he drew closer to, as he drew closer to Ajahn Chah, and then he had a doubt of, why do you teach? Why is it seems like your main meditation is just this recitation of Buddho? Isn't that, kind of lame? But then, or simple, simplistic. Shouldn't there be something more to it? And Ajahn Chah, his answer was something that provided contemplation for that person for years and years and years. Because all Ajahn Chah said was Namo Vijnana Dhatu, which is homage to the element of consciousness. And that's fundamental quality of, say, our being is consciousness, and it's when you call it as a consciousness element, it's not like personal consciousness. It is a fundamental element of the universe, and so that to hold that place of veneration and respect and incline the heart to understanding, experiencing that quality of knowing. That's the essence of our practice, and is what helps to be a catalyst for the realization of Nibbāna, and is, how we actually experience Nibbāna. And there, so it's a quality of knowing that, we all have, but we have to learn how to tune into it, and we have to learn how to not clutter it up, not complicate it, and that of course, using the Four Noble Truths as a tool to keep reminders of what are we experience? What is the nature of our experience right now? And Ajahn Chah, as a teacher, my teacher, just so often he would keep saying, "Are you suffering? Is that suffering? Are you experiencing dukkha?" And I remember him saying that to me, and I was explaining something that I was going through at the time, it's hopelessly convoluted and way up in the head. And Ajahn Chand looked at me with this very compassionate sort of look. Were you suffering? And of course, at the time, I didn't get it, but it hit me so hard that this is really important, and we're teasing out the opportunity for awakening through really contemplating our experience and being willing to live in a way that is really, based in this knowing, based in this awakened awareness. And there's a teacher in Thailand who she's considered part of the forest tradition, and very respected, and her description is very, I find very moving. And in her description of the heart of practice is an inward staying, unentangled knowing, all outward going knowing cast aside. It's a very beautiful way. So, an inward staying, unentangled knowing, all outward going knowing cast aside. It's very beautiful. So we can work with that. We can experience that. We can realize that it's within all of us. So those are a few reflections, contemplations on this theme of Nibbāna. So I'll offer that for you this evening.